Right, here we go. We are talking about stress, and who's got some of that? I think we all do on some level, right? Especially now, but we're going to like kind of connect the dots a little bit. So why are we, reaching for the chocolate, reaching for the wine, reaching for the meds? And we want to talk, definitely about what chronic stress really does to our health. My name is Dale LaCure. And I have Sandra Gentry Wells with me today. She's a pharmacist of 25 years. She knows a little bit about medications and holistic healing. She's also integrative nutrition coach. So she's a wealth of knowledge. Come and join us. Take notes. This is going to be amazing. So Sandra, thanks for being with me here today. I really appreciate you taking the time to educate us. So let's firstly talk about, what chronic stress does to us and does to the body, both mentally and physically.
Absolutely. So we can all agree that we're all under some kind of stress, whether it's physical, emotional. We deal with stress on a day-to-day basis, and stress in and of itself is not necessarily so bad. We need stress to help us meet some deadlines, to get out of bed in the morning, to get some things done. But the problem is with the cumulative stress. So when we have these repeated stressors every day, and it just adds up. So we need to learn to manage that. But what happens with those repeated stresses, our cortisol levels, which we all know cortisol is our stress hormone, when our cortisol levels remain elevated because of chronic stress, they decrease our metabolism. It increases our hunger. We get depressed. We get hypertension, sleep deprivation. You can get acid reflux, you get chronic fatigue, and you get inflammation just throughout the body. It also decreases our immune system. So with chronic stress, we actually are changing the way that our brain is wired and firing. All right, so the signals going to and from our brain actually change with this chronic stress. And eventually, like I said, stress at first is great because we need to, if you think of a zebra and a lion in the safari, the lion causes the zebra stress, and if the zebra can get away, great. So having that quick level of epinephrine to get away from whatever's causing us stress is great in the short term, but the repeated stress causes our body to wear out. So we end up kind of feeling numb, so to say, and we sometimes look for things to help us feel better, and that's where some of the addiction comes into. So, we're chronically in that state, so we're looking for something else to get over that. And stressors are different for each person. You and I may handle stress differently. Different days, they're going to bring different things that cause us stress. So chemically, what's going on, I talked about we've got chemical signals that we'll call neurotransmitters. When your cortisol is chronically elevated, we get a blockage of some of these neurotransmitters. We block our dopamine, so you don't feel motivated. You block your norepinephrine, so you don't have energy. We get a blockage in serotonin, so we don't feel happy. And we block our GABA receptors, so we don't feel relaxed. So all of these things get blocked when you have an increase in that chronic increase in your cortisol level. And that's why enter the substances that we look for to help us feel better. So we're looking for something externally because our body is not able to produce what it needs internally.
So that's why we have like a lot of cravings and that kind of thing. So like this event was all about, are you reaching for the chocolate? Are you reaching for the wine, the medication? So let's talk to each one of those.
Okay.
How it helps, maybe does not help.
Yeah, actually, so I said, cortisol activates our brain's pleasure centers. So we get that increased cravings. That's one of the things I said. So you get an increased craving specifically for sugar, which is in chocolate, which is in your wine. We don't think about it so much, obviously, with wine, but that does turn to sugar. The other thing is cortisol suppresses our motivation and our self-control. So, yeah, if you're standing in front of the refrigerator at night after a hard day's work, you're not going to look for your salads. I mean, most people are going to be looking for, whatever is the chips, all of the bad stuff. And think about cortisol. It reduces your willpower. It reduces your willpower to say no to things that you may otherwise be able to bypass and go on and make a healthier choice.
So that's like the comfort foods that people talk about.
Absolutely.
That's super interesting. Wow. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. So let's talk about like medications. Like people think that medications can help them with stress, and maybe they do. I mean, but you're a pharmacist, and I remember you saying like people come in with one medication and then a couple of weeks later you see them walking in for another one to undo some of the side effects from the first one, and then the cycle begins. So let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So, and medications are a lot of times the first line of therapy for medical practice, because that's all they're taught. They're taught that if somebody's feeling depressed or anxious, that we need to give them a medication to help with that. The problem is the medications actually don't improve our levels of these neurotransmitters that we just talked about, your norepinephrine, your serotonin, your dopamine. They just basically keep those neurotransmitters from being broken down in the brain. So they don't increase our levels. They just keep it from being destroyed as quickly, if that makes sense.
Right. So then you need more of it.
So you need more of it. And eventually then you're at the highest dose of one of the medications. So they add another medication. And then you may have side effects to that. So they'll add another medication. So it's not it's addressing the problem only in the brain.
All right, so let's get to the good stuff. What can we do to cut the cravings, to help us be able to be more stress resilient, and to help us reduce those cortisol, that high stress cortisol that gets produced? So what can we do? Where is the root to all of this?
So the root is actually in the gut. We now know in the past 5 years, all the information is coming out about studies around the gut microbiome and the gut-brain axis. We know now that our gut produces more of these neurotransmitters, your norepinephrine, your serotonin, your dopamine, and your GABA, than is actually produced in the brain. So we're addressing it at the root cause. We're addressing the gut microbiome where these things are made. And you need a healthy gut microbiome in order for these neurotransmitters or these chemical signals to be produced and to be communicated back and forth to the brain. So it really does start with gut health and making sure your gut microbiome is healthy, giving it the right bacteria to be able to function, and repairing the gut. A lot of times we've got gut damage from medications. Stress causes damage to the gut. We can have a problem called leaky gut syndrome. And we need to work to also, while we're putting these good bacteria back into the body, we need to work to reduce any inflammation that's going on and repair that leaky gut as well. One of the things I said, cortisol really wreaks havoc in the body. It increases our inflammation. And when we have inflammation in the body, we don't think about it, but think about a poor cell carrier connection. Like if your cell phone isn't operating well, think of that as inflammation. We want clear communication pathways between our gut and our brain. And when we can decrease that inflammation, the signals flow easier.
Wow.
So we don't have that blockage. Yeah. So it's not, and inflammation is not something that you necessarily can see or feel inside the body. I mean, obviously, if you sprain your wrist or something like that, you can see inflammation, but internal inflammation in the body is very difficult to see. But when you can improve it, you just feel it.
Would you say that, like across the board, people have some form of gut, like dysbiosis or imbalance or, damage?
Yes.
Like you say?
100%. I think because number one, it's the foods we eat, it's, the fast foods, the processed foods, but it also goes back to environmental issues, the toxins, the chemicals you're around day in and day out, things that are sprayed on our foods. So yes, I believe that every person has some sort of gut dysbiosis or malfunction of their gut microbiome.
So that's going to affect both. And so like autoimmune stuff is definitely like inflammation, correct?
Yes.
So that would be a sign that there's inflammation. Like, as you're saying, like inflammation, when we think of like our joints are stiff or something like that, but it can go a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, and most autoimmune diseases, probably I would say 90% or more of autoimmune diseases are all linked back to gut health and leaky gut.
Wow, that's crazy. So I know that you and I are both partnered with the Mental Wellness Company, and we're trying to get this information out there. So can you talk a little bit about the clinical study that we have around our gut-brain axis protocol, like how it's been tested and shown to do what it says it does?
Yes. So we're talking about something called our fundamentals package, and it contains 3 products that we know work in the gut to help improve our stress resilience. So it was shown to decrease stress by 50%.
Wow.
That's huge. Decrease depression by 50%. Decrease anxiety, feelings of anxiety by 55%, and decrease irritability, because if you know you're stressed out, you know your fuse is a little bit shorter, but it decreases irritability by 60%. And it's been shown to increase the good bacteria in the gut by 70%. And these are the bacteria that are producing those chemical neurotransmitters to help us feel happy, motivated, and relaxed.
And that would explain why, once you get the gut back in balance and you start feeling, more stress resilience, you feel more calm and relaxed, that you're not necessarily craving, right, the chocolate and the wine.
Right. Because it gets those, when you get your chemical signals back in balance, you have the willpower to kind of say no to those things.
Yeah. That's so interesting, the willpower. I'm picturing like standing at the refrigerator and being like, oh, I want that so bad, but if your cortisol is back where it should be, then you'll have more willpower, which is really, really interesting. Super interesting.
Yes.
Very, very good. So anything else you want to share with us? This has been really educational. If anyone wants more information about the gut-brain axis protocol, definitely comment protocol, and we'll get you the information needed. So to get started, rebalancing, right? So anything else you want to add?
The other big takeaway for me is sleep. People need, that's another root cause, besides just a gut imbalance. And we said with the increased cortisol, you can have some sleep deprivation because your mind's racing, you can't shut everything off. So just making sure you get quality sleep, and that's not 4 and 5 hours of sleep. Sometimes we think we can skimp on that. And I'm one to tell you, when I'm working third shift and I don't get my sleep, it shows. You can tell that you're a little bit more irritable and you're not as well focused. So yes, sleep is of primary importance. And we do have a sleep product that is very unique and it works wonderfully. It is not a melatonin-based product. It's a precursor to melatonin, but I think this product is absolutely wonderful. And we had talked about wine, or any wine, alcohol, anything like that does disrupt your sleep. We typically think that, it helps me to calm down and relax and I can go to sleep. And you may go to sleep faster, but you don't get that deep REM sleep, which is what the body needs to repair and recover.
So what happens to cortisol when you're sleeping? The levels come down, correct?
The levels are supposed to come down. So your cortisol levels, they're biphasic, so they vary during the day. But when you're sleeping at night, your cortisol levels should drop. But what happens is if you're under chronic stress, that cortisol level doesn't drop, it doesn't go down, and therefore you have interrupted sleep. If anybody wakes up or can't go to sleep because your mind's racing, your cortisol level's probably not dropped enough. And we have another product that helps to modulate your cortisol level, which is our Mood Plus product, which is phenomenal because it works pretty immediately. And that one works great taken before bedtime if you've got your racing mind and you can't just shut things off.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, this is it. We got to get to the natural solutions, not the Band-Aid approaches. That's the thing. Our bodies want to be in homeostasis, right? They want to be balanced. And once they're balanced, we feel better emotionally, physically. Our immune system is pumping, right? Protecting us and getting really good sleep, which is like you said, so key in every aspect of our health.
Yeah.
For
So
brain and body. Yeah.
Repair your gut, get sleep, and decrease inflammation in your body.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with me. And I see Amy Lynn is interested in getting some information. So we will get that to you. And anyone else that wants information, just put information down below and we'll get back to you. So thank you again, Sandra. I really appreciate your time and being with me today. You're a wealth of knowledge. I'm so excited that you're in spreading this message about really root causes and getting people to look at more natural approaches to healing. So
yes.
thank you again.
Thank you, Dale.
Yeah, have an amazing day, everyone.